Good morning. Here we are again at the beach. Another beautiful, beautiful beach morning. Thank you for joining us today for another extraordinary Spirit Gateways inquiry. And of course, we have who is the founder and creator director and chief evolutionary officer of Spirit Gateways Institute. And good morning, Ayana. How are you?
Good morning. How are you?
Great, thank you. Thank you for being here and gracing us with your presence. In the last few days, we've had some wonderful conversations about Spirit Gateways Institute. Could you just start with telling me what makes Spirit Gateways Institute really unique?
I'd love to. Spirit Gateways is a journey that takes you through your psychological patterns, the barriers, those invisible walls and veils that are inside of each person into their spiritual essence to help them illuminate into who they truly are. So it makes Spirit Gateways unique. It's not that it's just an emotional healing experience or a psychological therapeutic experience or a spiritual revelatory experience. They're all happening simultaneously. And so a person is brought into the awareness of their soul essence as the center point to be able to make these radical shifts in these three areas. And so this makes the experience of Spirit Gateways and diving into this for oneself to be a very holistic experience.
So, excuse me, how does this differ from traditional therapy or humanistic psychology or some of the New Age techniques? And how does this differ from even the use of plant medicines or other kinds of mind-altering substances?
It's a good question, thanks. An individual is always brought into their energy configuration, the energy awareness. Each person, each of you has an energy configuration that is uniquely yours, and you experience coming into your energy field from an aligned place in your spiritual self. You're never giving your power over to anything outside of yourself. You are always learning about who you are and the essence and truth of your own power. There isn't any way to get lost in the process, and there isn't any external stimuli to bring you to one plane of awareness and get stuck there. There's many dimensions of our consciousness, and the brain is throughout the body. And so because the work with Spirit Gateways works with your entire energy, spiritual, and physical matrix, meaning that configuration, it's like an engineering perfection of the universe. We are working in that universal perfection directly, so there's never the feeling or the experience of such enormous fear coming up or sorrows or pain that you don't get lost in the process itself. You enter into the source within you, which is always holding you. And as you acclimate to that source within you and you release your own fears and resistances into the source within you, you are learning to be in a new relationship with yourself throughout the whole experience of Spirit Gateways.
So you've been doing this for a long time, yes?
Yes.
And have you developed any special tools or methods or techniques that support this work?
Yeah, the methods and the tools actually were shown to me. I noticed the same patterns within each person that I was working with. This started consciously about 40 years ago. And I noticed that no matter what background, culture, religious training, non-training, or part of the world that a person came from, as human beings, we are aligned and are configured a certain way with similar emotional patterns. So one of those tools I call ABR. And the A stands for abandonment, the B stands for betrayal, and the R stands for rejection. And all of us, at some point, usually starting from a very young age, ABR ourselves. And we abandon ourselves, we betray our own self, we reject ourselves. And we conclude early on that who we are doesn't matter, that we may not have the right to exist, that we may not be worthy of love, and that truly, it's like who we are really doesn't matter, and that we can't meet what's being asked of us because it feels so external. And that's why the new parenting that is coming up and popping up is so important and so crucial and precious, because it's the level of parenting where the child's experience and feelings and emotions are really important. So if as a child you felt that who you were, what you had to say, what you felt didn't really matter, you internally, unconsciously created conclusions about yourself. So in the Spirit Gateway's experience, the journey itself, through the 21st Century Liberation Roadmap, which is the process through, you start off by discovering how you are ABRing yourself. And it's a beautiful, beautiful beginning. Another tool or technique is reconnecting with your true essence, your soul, and coming from the connection with your soul is how we do the work. And so it's different than traditional therapy because we're not talking from a split place, being separate, living in separation from the truth that you are. So you are working from an immediate meditative state consciously. You are present, you're conscious, but you are experiencing being reconnected into the infinite, that quantum space inside of yourself where all of your super consciousness, your divine and human self exist. And so the whole experience is an awakening. And that's different than like feeling dragged down into emotion or talking about things to the point where there isn't the breakthrough on the whole level, in the whole self. Maybe there's that intellectual understanding, but I've worked with so many people who have had an intellectual understanding, and then the experience happens for them where they go, wow, I thought I already handled this. And then the big, whoa, awakening happens, and so it is a cathartic experience, and sometimes it feels subtle, sometimes it feels like, wow, my whole life has just changed.
Oh. So you have a background as a movement artist, because you were classically trained in modern dance and ballet.
Yeah.
And you've also had a lot of training in energy medicine.
Yeah.
Does that play into your work at all?
Tremendously, because the initial spiritual awakenings happened through being a dancer, a movement artist, exploring beyond the boundaries of traditional modern dance and ballet, so that my own experience of myself happened through awakening to the light in my body at the ballet bar a long time ago when I was 20 years old, and experiencing through just an arm gesture, all of a sudden my whole auric field opening up and being surrounded in gorgeous colors and light, and experiencing the amazing physical and spiritual connection to movement with the light, and choreographing from being one with the light. And so it was creating a very new movement form that I brought into the healing arts. So for my training as a dancer, which I've never really stopped, I brought into the healing arts after I began training in working with helping the body heal through balancing the energies in the body, and then took it into the integration of it being a psychological, physical experience. So what happens is that the breakthroughs are more rapid than other therapies, and you feel balanced. As a dance artist, movement artist, I thrived living in that state of alignment and balance, and perfecting that balance state, and internally and externally. So in your experience in Spirit Gateways, you get to do movement. I've created my own approach to teaching movement so that it's an awakening experience, and that's love to be the movement, and that's combined with be light meditation. So you get to move, in those classes that are specifically geared for movement, and also the be light meditation, which is your personal awakening and journey into the light that you are. So the movement happens on the inside. Even if you have no desire to do any external movement, you might eventually just really enjoy feeling your energy. But in the Spirit Gateways experience in the 21st Century Liberation Roadmap here, you are liberating yourself through learning to move and open in yourself, integrating the intellect, the emotions, your spirit, your soul in your physical body, and understanding really the purpose of your physicality in a whole new way.
So I want to come back to the movement and meditation and the ABR, but I want to ask you a different question.
Mm-hmm.
What is the 21st Century Liberation Roadmap? Why do you call it liberation?
Mm-hmm.
How is it a roadmap?
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. The Liberation Roadmap is the process you don't have to take in any specific order, which is really my universal approach to offering this roadmap. It's not like you're starting with 1 and you end up at 10, even though you find your own inner liberation roadmap by making those connections in yourself to then have your breakthroughs. And it's a liberation because you're breaking out of the boxes that you've been in, those patternings that have come through childhood development, through religious development. We oftentimes identify ourselves, we leave ourselves. The liberation is happening through coming back into yourself and being able to really reconnect into the source with inside of yourself, and it's a roadmap because it's going to get you there. When you're using a map, you want to make sure that where you are is going to take you to your destination.
So does this, when I hear liberation, I think of, many different readings that talk about self-realization. Does this have a relationship? When you talk about liberation of the self, is that self-realization? How do you reconnect that? You talked earlier about separation and oneness. How does that all work together?
There are many levels of self-realization, all the way into God realization, and starting from the beginning of realizing who you truly are is the first level. And realizing yourself takes you out of the false self-operating system, which I know we'll get into and talk about. That ego operating system is created through the leaving who your true self really is. And so in self-realization, it begins with the actualization. You realize yourself and you actualize your new integrated self into motion, into your life. You find that your relationships expand, your prosperity levels grow, you discover that you're on track with who you are. Your life purpose and your spiritual true self come together. So that's one of the immediate outcomes of the roadmap that you're on. And your liberation is happening moment to moment as you are viewing, being, and feeling who you are in a whole new way.
So when you talk about the roadmap, how do you know that you're on track? Is there a way that you can quote measure, almost measure in a tangible way, that you know that something positive is happening?
Yeah, in the 21st Century Liberation Roadmap workbook, you can read and take in whenever you want those aha moments. There are moments that are very universal, that happen with all of us, that are experiences where you are breaking out of an old model of thinking and feeling inside yourself that may have been with you for lifetimes, that you brought into this lifetime, attracted certain familial and environmental situations that were meant to just break you open. And when you become aware of why you were born into your family, for instance, and no matter how difficult situations might have been in this lifetime and still might be, they have that purpose. And so we are cracking open for your self-realization, the whys of your life, like why and how can I shift this and break through? Oh, I see. I'm coming back to me. And so as you come back to you, you are now entering into that whole infinite universe within inside of you. And it's like it opens slowly but steady. I'm one of those people, I like slow and steady, not just rip through something and be torn apart inside, which a lot of therapies can do that are focused on one technique. And one of your inner bodies, like your emotional body, might all of a sudden be so blown apart you can hardly even find who you are.
So how, there's over many years, there's a lot of people who are exploring, up in the West, who are exploring other traditions, yoga, Buddhism, Hinduism, even, Kabbalah and mystical Judaism and some parts of Gnostic Christianity. How does this relate at all to any of the religions? It is beyond the religion. Explain what's the kind of framework or philosophical basis for codependence.
Inside of all religions is the gateway into the source itself, the center point, where if you take whatever religion you are following and honor it completely and really live it, where you are surrendering into the experience, you can go to God, and you have the opportunity to experience your direct connection to the source itself, so that your relationship with the religion that you are following and practicing can really bring you to where you really want to go, which is usually an awakened state, a higher connection into your connection with the universe, with who you are, and to go beyond yourself. And what I'm talking about is when you give your power over to a religion and you take on a belief system, and you take on the belief system that overrides your own connection to the source power within you. And all of the religions all came to be for different times in history, and they all were created by the avatar being, the great manifestation of God in human form, coming to create a pathway for people at that time. And when we get stuck in giving our power over to a belief system without doing the inner journey experience into God ourselves, instead of us becoming an enlightened being, we can become separate from our emotional body or the depths of our soul. And when you meet someone in any religion and you look at them in the eye, you can tell if they're one with God. And nowadays, there's so much talk about belief and truth that unless you take the time to really go into the source oneself, it's hard to know what to believe. So having the experience yourself of bringing yourself into that alignment instead of being separate and fragmented, so that you can't find the doorway in. When you find the doorway in, you can go as far as you want to at whatever level of self-realization that is really destined for you in this lifetime.
So what I'm hearing is that we go back to the beginning part of our conversation today. We talked about ABR, abandon, betray, and reject, and you can do that to yourself, or that can actually happen to you. You can be abandoned by your parents physically, emotionally, mentally, all different. You can be rejected by your parents or other people socially.
Yeah.
So those are certain levels of trauma that we carry in our body. Sometimes we recognize it, sometimes we don't, but they clearly influence what happens in our life. I remember a wonderful quote by Jung, who said, that if you don't deal with the unconscious, then all the things that happen to you, you think are fate, as opposed to if you actually deal with the unconscious and you change that, you have the ability to change your quote fate. It's a very interesting perspective, right? And that's barely only 100 years old. But my question really is, if you're dealing with the trauma is one level in which you can approach the spirit gateways work through. And then you also talked about God realization and liberation. That's a pretty big spectrum. Could you talk about that or explain that just a little bit?
My work of spirit gateways is to bring you into that alignment with your true self, so that wherever you want to go with that, is your choice. And through this experience, yes, you can begin to connect into your God self. And that's different than God realization. And
thank you for that. Thank you for that clarification.
That's a whole different level. Spirit Gateways is for the individual who really desires to break through and experience who they truly are and be able to make enormous strides with their awakening, so that you can experience from the cosmic levels right into your physicality and be able to manifest why you're here and have it really happen. The interior barriers get in the way of our path to source, into God itself. If you're someone who's not content with just having the material reality happen, or you're someone where you're wondering why your material reality is where it is, you're being naturally pointed to having those breakthroughs to come through those inner gateways back into who you are. And the who you are is not in your head. It's going to happen through the opening into your inner true self, the matrix of who you are, the interior awakened state that you are, that is individual and unique to you. No one else has your pathway. So it makes the Spirit Gateway's Liberation Roadmap so unique, is that it can help anybody wherever they are be able to step through that door without having to be in therapy for years, or use plant medicine, or meditate for 3 hours a day. Your life becomes a living experience, a living journey. Each moment, no matter what it is you're doing, you learn how to stay really focused and clear in that connected, heartful, mindful, soulful, integrated way.
So I have so many, you've opened up so many new avenues of questions, and I have so many things to ask you, but we're running out of time for today's session. I want to ask you one last question.
Yeah.
You talked earlier about ABR.
Yeah.
You also talked about separation, and you talked about oneness, and you talked about recognizing the God within, and also God realization. Those are all like really interesting ideas. Is there any way that you want to pull together a thread between all of that?
The only way you can really evolve and have it stick, meaning to reach into your higher states, is to do the interior work first that gets lodged in your energetic and emotional body, because you're having to reset, you're having to rewire everything, and that happens naturally in the Spirit Gateways 21st Century Liberation Roadmap. You're liberating yourself into your sacred and divine matrix that feels so human, like you realize who you are as a human being. And that's truly the benefit. And what Spirit Gateways is really all about is to realize and experience your awakened humanness, your humanity, the person that you truly are. And that in that awakening, God is always here, because God is inside of you. And so when you go deep enough, you move through those levels of unawakened consciousness, and it can look like you're moving into the dark. You're transforming what's been left in the dark within you, and you are lifting that. You are igniting that part of yourself to begin with the light that you are, and you become whole. And that's one of the aha moments. You become whole in yourself. And when you are whole in yourself, you have a better chance of really evolving into what a person would want to say, wow, I feel God today. I feel God in me. I feel God around me. I see the God in everyone. I'm thinking differently. I'm going into my meeting this morning with a whole different perspective. I'm speaking to my kids in a whole different way. I'm writing my report in a different way. I'm not abandoning myself, and I'm not betraying my own inner voice. I'm not rejecting who I am. I'm not leaving him or her outside in the cold. I'm coming together and I'm moving in my life as a whole human being.
So what I'm hearing is that this is very practical. That this is not to take you outside or
Yes.
to transcend or to...
Absolutely.
It's really about grounding and being very present in the
Yes.
world and being very available to yourself and available to others, because you're present in the moment and you're experiencing that connectivity with Source as well as being able to interact with you are.
Yes.
How does this happen on a practical basis? What programs does Spirit Gateway Institute offer that allow an individual to take advantage of all that you've created?
A person, all of you have the choice to, as soon as you subscribe at my website, you immediately become part of the Evolutionary Empowerment Global Village, and you can receive all the free offerings, and there's some really good ones. And you also then have the option to come into Tribe Transformation, which is a group mentoring experience, and you're given the whole experience. And you can also choose to do one-on-one mentoring work with me also. So there's two ways of coming in, the group mentoring and the one-on-one mentoring.
Wonderful. So, everybody, thank you for joining us today. Ayana, thank you for opening up so many doorways and pathways to deeper understanding of the self. We have so much more to explore. You opened up so many possibilities today. I'm so thrilled. And I want in the next time, I want you to talk a little bit more about tribe transformation as well as the one-on-one work, because those are two distinctly different pathways that anybody can go down. So another day to be, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us. The sun is getting high, we're both getting very hot, but very enjoyable. And we want to thank you very much for joining us in another Spirit Gateways Inquiry episode, and we look forward to sharing more with you in the future. Thank you so much.
Thank you.